Here's a list of the greatest generals in human history, ranked from those with the fewest battles won to those with the most victories. Number 10, Hannibal, with a total of 18 battles. Hannibal Barca, the man who made the Romans tremble in their sandals, is one of history's greatest military minds with an incredible 18 battle victories under his belt. Born in 247 BC in Carthage, modern-day Tunisia, with a lifelong goal of making the Romans regret crossing his family, which they did eventually. So, when he got the chance, he set out to settle the score during the Second Punic War. And he did it in the most epic way possible, by crossing the Alps with thousands of soldiers, cavalry, and elephants. Yes, you heard that right, elephants. Imagine being a Roman soldier, thinking you're safe behind the Alps, only to see a bunch of war elephants coming down the mountain. Talk about a bad day at work. Hannibal's most famous victory came at the Battle of Cannae in 2016 BC, where he encircled and destroyed a much larger Roman army, causing one of the worst defeats in Roman history. Although he eventually lost the war, Hannibal's tactics have been studied and admired by generals for centuries. He was the guy who, despite losing in the end, made Rome break out in a cold sweat. The thousands of soldiers, cavalry, and elephants trekking through snow-covered mountains. It's like taking a herd of elephants on a skiing holiday. Number 9. Maurice of Nassau, with a total of 21 battles. Maurice of Nassau was the Netherlands' answer to a military genius, turning the Dutch army from a ragtag bunch into a top-notch fighting force. Over his career, he wrapped up 21 battle wins and played a pivotal role in helping the Dutch wrestle their independence from Spain. Maurice wasn't just about winning battles. He was a game-changer in military strategy. He introduced slick new drills, improved firearm tactics, and brought field fortifications into play like a pro. His Mauritian reforms were so effective that they made his army as adaptable as a Swiss army knife, revolutionizing European military tactics in the process. One of his most impressive feats was the Siege of Breda in 1590. Maurice pulled off a masterstroke by hiding troops in a peat barge and sneaking them into the city's defenses. Kind of like a medieval sneak attack with a side of swampy disguise. His knack for clever strategies and rigorous drills, not to mention those chilly morning showers, turned his army into a well-oiled, surprise-filled machine. So when you think of a smart military leader, remember Maurice, the guy who made battlefield tactics look like a strategic game of hide-and-seek. Number 8. Alexander the Great, with a total of 22 battles. Alexander the Great was like the kid in school who aced every test, won every race, and still had time to conquer half the known world just before lunch. He was born in 356 BC and was personally tutored by the great Aristotle. When he wasn't busy quoting philosophy, he was out conquering Persia, Egypt, and wherever his horse chose to take him. His favorite hobby, winning battles. He sure never lost one, which is quite a lot to take in considering he fought everywhere from the desert of Egypt to the mountains of India. One of his classic moves was at the Battle of Gaugamela, when he pulled a classic gotcha and outflanked the massive Persian army. But Alexander didn't stop at conquering. He founded over 20 cities, most of them named Alexandria. If GPS existed back then, it would have been a nightmare finding the right Alexandria. Sadly, he met his end when he marched his army across the Gedrosian Desert, which was almost as fun as it sounds. He died at 32, possibly from overachieving. Still, was a legend. Number 7. Julius Caesar, with a total of 23 battles. Julius Caesar was a legendary leader of ancient Rome. He was the kind of guy who didn't just walk into a room. He crossed the Rubicon with an army and declared, "I came, I saw, I conquered." He was a politician, general, and basically an all-around goal-getter who was born in 100 BC. He decided that ruling Rome as part of a trio, first triumvirate, wasn't enough. He wanted the whole pie. Caesar was famous for his epic military conquests and political savvy, winning a whopping 23 battles. His expansion efforts turned the Roman Republic into a colossal empire. One of his big wins was the conquest of Gaul. where he spent about 8 years basically conquering everything that moved. It wouldn't be so surprising that he was a master PR, seeing that he documented every single detail of his conquest, making sure everyone in Rome knew just how great he was. But his bold move came in 49 BC, when he crossed the Rubicon River with his army, effectively declaring war on the Roman Senate. That's like walking into a board meeting and saying, "I am the CEO now." This led to a civil war. Of course, Caesar won. He was named dictator for life, but that life didn't last long. He was assassinated on the Ides in March in 44 BC by some so-called friends. Despite his dramatic exit, Caesar's influence on Roman politics and military strategy was huge. And here's the cool tidbit. He revamped the calendar into what we now call the Julian calendar, which is basically the granddaddy of the one we use today. Quite the legacy. Did you know this? Drop your comment below. We would love to know your thoughts or any other cool facts about these generals. Number 6. Khalid ibn al-Walid, with a total win of 28 battles. Khalid ibn al-Walid, famously known as the Sword of Allah, was like the Islamic world version of a superhero. Never lost a battle, always made the right move, and could change the tide of war with a single flick of his sword. With an amazing streak of 28 battles won, he played a major role in expanding the early Islamic empire. Khalid was born around 592 BC. He actually started as a fierce opposition to Islam, but after his conversion, he became a great warrior. Talk about being so good at everything. His most famous win, the Battle of Yarmouk. Khalid led a ragtag force of just 3,000 against a Byzantine army of 200,000 and pulled off an epic upset. You could say he made punching above your weight look like an understatement. All these he did with an outnumbered, underfed troop. But Khalid wasn't just about smashing enemies. He was also a master strategist and a fearless leader. In the Battle of Mu'tah, he orchestrated a brilliant retreat, saving his troops from a much larger Byzantine force and earning his legendary title. His troops loved him because he was always in the thick of every fight, leading by example and never asking them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. He was so good that Caliph Abu Bakr once said, "Women will no longer give birth to the likes of Khalid." Yet despite his unparalleled success, his career ended abruptly when Caliph Umar, worried that people might start believing Khalid was the real reason for the victories, took him out of command. Khalid spent his last years wishing he had died in battle. Number 5. Erwin Rommel, with a total of 30 battles. Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, was the World War II general who could outfox anyone on the battlefield. With over 30 battle victories under his belt, he could turn a losing hand into a winning one. Rommel was born in 1891 and was a rising star in German history during World War II. He made the sand dune look like a jungle gym, moving his Africa corps around with such speed that it felt like they had a teleportation device. Even the British had to admit that Rommel was darn good at his job. Despite fighting for Nazi Germany, Rommel wasn't a fan of executing Jewish people and had the guts to say no to those orders. It's like he was the unexpected hero in a plot full of villains. Things took a dramatic turn when he was linked to a plot to assassinate Hitler. Imagine a real-life Mission Impossible moment. While his involvement was murky, Hitler never wanted to shy away from drama, forced Rommel to commit suicide in 1944. His life ended in a twist more surprising than a season finale, leaving a legacy of a brilliant, honorable commander who played by his own rules. Number 4. Duke of Wellington, with a total of 39 battles. The Duke of Wellington, or Arthur Wellesley if you're feeling formal, was Britain's ultimate Napoleon buster. His claim to fame, the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, where he put an end to Napoleon's rule and basically said thanks but no thanks to the French emperor's ambitions. He was a calm and collected type. Think James Bond, but with a musket instead of Walther PPK. At Waterloo, Wellington played the battlefield like a pro gamer. He placed his troops on a ridge and used reverse slopes to keep them out of the line of fire. You imagine it could be something out of a skiing manual. It's like he was using some top-secret, ancient military strategy playbook that only he had access to. He was so good at holding the line that Napoleon must have wondered if Wellington had superglued his army to the ground. With a stunning 39 battle victories under his belt, Wellington didn't just call it a day. He took his talents to politics, serving as the UK Prime Minister twice. His legacy, a mix of battlefield brilliance and political savvy, making him the historical equivalent of a rock star who could also do your taxes. Number 3. Napoleon Bonaparte. With a total of 56 battles, Napoleon Bonaparte was an ultimate military genius, boasting an insane record of 56 battles. Talk about being the GOAT of commanders. He never took no for an answer, especially if it came from Europe. He was born in 1769 on the island of Corsica, and by 1804, he had crowned himself Emperor of France, because why wait for someone else to do it? He was a battlefield genius and was known for his ability to think 3 steps ahead. His most famous win, the Battle of Austerlitz, where he totally outplayed the combined forces of Russia and Austria. It's like he had a cheat code for military strategy, pulling off complex moves like a chess grandmaster with a flair for the dramatic. Napoleon was also a fan of artillery, but not the boring kind. He had the cannons zipping around the battlefield, popping up where they were needed most. Picture him saying, "Surprise! Here's some cannon fire." But every winning streak has a bad day, and his came when he decided to invade Russia in 1812. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well. After a brutal winter and a disastrous retreat, his luck started to run out. Napoleon was actually defeated at Waterloo in 1815, but not after cementing his name among the greatest of all times. If you watched this far and haven't liked or subscribed, it's like ordering a pizza and forgetting the toppings. Don't let it be plain. Smash that like button and also subscribe to support the channel so I can keep serving you delicious content with all the extra cheese. Number 2. Suvorov. With a total of 63 battles, here is Alexander Suvorov, who was the Russian general and seemed to think losing was just too mainstream. This guy never lost a single battle, chalking up an impressive 63 wins. He is known for his unconventional tactics and boundless energy, and he led his troops to victory in all kinds of conflicts, from the Russo-Turkish Wars to taking on Napoleon himself. One of his most jaw-dropping stunts was the Alpine crossing during the Swiss campaign, where he led his army through treacherous mountain passes like it was a scenic hike, outmaneuvering and defeating the French forces. One of his secret sauces was that he had a straightforward and practical approach to warfare. He believed in keeping it simple and efficient, often opting for quick, defensive attacks that left his enemies scratching their heads. His famous motto, "Train hard, fight easy," perfectly summed up his philosophy. Suvorov's emphasis on rigorous training and preparation meant his soldiers were always ready to spring into action. His unique blend of brilliance and unpredictability made him a formidable opponent. Number 1. Subutai combined with Genghis Khan, with a total win of 65 battles. Genghis Khan, who was the charismatic founder of the Mongol Empire, and Subutai, who was his brilliant right-hand man with a talent for multitasking and commanding multiple armies. Together, they took over the world and racked up a whopping 65 victories, building one of the largest empires the world has ever seen and making Genghis a universal ruler over the empire. Genghis Khan's leadership skills were legendary, uniting the Mongol tribes with a blend of charisma and maybe a few threats. When Genghis says surrender or die, people tend to listen. Meanwhile, Subutai's tactical genius turned this unity into battlefield dominance. Subutai wasn't just any strategist. He was the guy who could pull off complex maneuvers over vast distances while probably making it home in time for dinner. These two revolutionized warfare with a mix of speed, deception, and tactics so innovative, they'd make even a modern general's head spin. One of their greatest hits was the invasion of Europe, where Subutai led a series of raids that showed off the Mongol army's unmatched mobility and discipline. Picture it. Armies moving so fast, they probably had ancient versions of speed tickets. They didn't just fight, they messed with their enemies' heads. Victories often came before the first arrow was even shot. This dynamic duo was unbeatable, adapting to and outsmarting opponents left and right. Together, they carved their names into military history and left a mark in the world that's still pretty impressive today. And that's a rundown of some of the greatest generals in human history. Their stories aren't just about battles and strategies, but also about resilience, determination, and the will to overcome adversity. The moral of the story is to beware of smooth talkers. They could lead you to some really great victories and sometimes your end. Just kidding though. We hope you enjoyed learning about these incredible figures as much as we enjoyed sharing their stories with you. If you really enjoyed this video, then check out our previous post about great people who weren't actually great people. See you in the next video.